Hi everyone, so I'm now back here in my home in the city, and I'm so glad I was able to squeeze in this vlog because in a few days I am scheduled to leave to go to a neighboring province to drive out because I'm scheduled to shoot there for around 6 or 7 days. So by the time I get there, I won't be able to do anything, and I'm just really so excited to do this vlog because this will be all about Lisa Eldridge makeup products that I got recently. So I talked about this in my previous vlog, so I'm gonna link it down on the description box. Okay, yeah, so I have here her Bohemian Cherry Rouge Experience refill. And the reason why I buy the refills is because I would have to decant this into a lip palette, because as I've said before, having lipsticks in their original packaging, it actually takes up so much space and it also adds so much weight into my kit. So anyway, I'm just really so excited that we have this right now. I have been waiting for this, and this was the color that I was initially very attracted to when Lisa launched her Rouge Experience lipsticks. Okay, so I also have here two of her Sculpt and Shade lip pencil. One is in 3C and one is in 3N. Did I get the names right? Yeah, that's correct. So we'll also be trying that out today. And the other thing that we'll be trying out is the foundation, and this is in number 17. Now I've tried this foundation before when it was first launched as a blister pack. Now although I really enjoyed this shade on me at that time, I was just anticipating that my skin was gonna get lighter because I might not get exposed to the sun. But ironically, for the past few months now, especially that I've been going back to my home in the province, I have been getting so much sun exposure, and my skin is just a little bit deeper than the usual. So although I could actually adjust the number 16 shade with a bronzer, but sometimes I'm just too lazy to do that. So let's see if this will work for me at this time, and if if it doesn't, let's try to see if I could adjust it in any way using other makeup products. All right, so yeah, before we dive into trying out the Bohemian Cherry Rouge Experience refill, let's check out the number 17 foundation on me. Okay, now I have some of her Elevated Glow highlighter. This is in Solar Light. So I love using this when my skin is a little bit deeper because it just goes very well with the undertones of my skin. And I actually prefer to apply Lisa's Elevated Glow highlighter before I apply foundation. So applying it in the highest points of my cheeks. Usually, I'm not gonna apply this on my nose because I'm quite oily there, and a little bit of that here. And by the way, I'm also using a mix of artificial light and natural light today when I'm shooting. It's just because I'm shooting in a different angle here in the house, so I'm not so familiar on how the light hits in this area. But so far I'm just so glad that everything is working well. Anyway, so that's it. So the highlighter is down, so let's just wait for that to settle for around 3 minutes, and then let's proceed and use the foundation. All right, so the highlighter has set. Fantastic. And now it's time for us to try the foundation in number 17. So I'm just gonna be using a flat brush for this. And the reason why is because I find that it's actually easier for me to layer on Lisa's foundation using this type of a brush head design. I'm able to spread it out, and I'm also able to gradually add layers on to get to the coverage that I want. Look at that, very nice skin-like quality, beautiful match to my skin so far. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to add and blend everything. So don't worry, I know it looks quite green here on my cheek, but as I try to blend it out and spread it out and elongate the foundation, it's going to blend very well into my skin, and it's not going to be obvious. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if I'm using the wrong shade of foundation, if I'm using something that's way too yellow, as soon as I apply it, it's going to look very yellow on my skin. But as you guys can see with this foundation, it just blends seamlessly. Very easy to use. It's such a no-brainer kind of a foundation. Now, by the way, guys, do not throw the packaging that the foundation came in with, especially with the base here, because over time, as you continue to use, like, Lisa's foundation, there will come a point wherein you're going to be, like, using whatever is left on the foundation. And because of the package design of this, if you leave it on the side, usually the remaining foundation will, like, lay on the side, and you won't be able to use up, like, the product that's left in the bottle. So I do suggest is that you keep this, like, upright all the time on its base like this, so that at any time you'll use it, like, all of the foundation is pooling at the bottom of the bottle, and you're using all of the foundation in it, so you don't, like, waste your product and your money. Okay, so I've applied a good amount of layers. I'm just gonna tap the foundation in, make it, like, set. Now, what I love about this foundation is that it has a very nice brightening quality to it, but it's not, like, overly dewy, it's not overly radiant, and it just looks like your skin. Also feels very, very light. Okay, fantastic. And if I do decide to add a little bit of some bronzer later, maybe let's do that. But so far, I'm liking on how this looks on my skin as it is. Okay, now let's add a little bit of blush, and I'm going to be using the Hourglass Unreal liquid blush for us today, and this is in the color Vision. And I'm going to be using the brush that I use for the highlighter, so that whatever, like, highlighter product is left on the brush head here, it's just going to blend well with the blush, and it's also gonna, like, add this very nice dewy look that we already have. Okay, I always love putting on, like, blush after putting on foundation, because sometimes foundations has a tendency of washing you out, and you kind of, like, lose the natural colors on your skin and on your face. And that's why sometimes you look at yourself and go, like, why do I look pale? Or, like, what's wrong? Like, this wasn't the look that I'm going for. So that's just, like, my technique. And I also find that it's also going to be easier for me to blend in my concealer a little bit later. In keeping with the radiant theme that we have going on right now, I have the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. Yes, I finally got the name right. So this is in the color Ginger, so it's a medium 2. Now, I'm not gonna use very light under eye, like, color for me today, because I don't like, a very highlighted under eye. I actually prefer it if it's, like, almost skin-like, because if my under eye is, like, way too highlight, my cheeks are actually very, very round. So it kind of, like, makes me look like, I'm a clown. And I find that, like, using a concealer which is, like, close to my actual skin and the foundation, like, just really works better for me. Okay, look at that. And then with the brush that I use for the foundation, I'm just gonna tap everything and blend in the edges. Okay, let me also add that here in the other side. Okay, that's good. And now I'm just gonna set my under eye concealer with some loose setting powder. So this is from Laura Mercier, and this is the OG powder that I absolutely love. And I'm just, patting it so lightly here in the under eye area and in the places where I applied and blended out, like, the creamy concealer from NARS. Alright, so I'm quite happy with that. Now I'm just gonna set the rest of my face lightly with some loose setting powder. Now, although Lisa's foundation here is self-setting, if you're someone who has very oily skin, like, someone like me, it's best to apply just a very nice, like, thin layer of, like, powder all over, just to add to, like, some longevity, and also just to minimize the appearance of, like, making it look shiny. And it just, like, really helps to set it for the rest of the day. I am loving, like, the combination of the blush and the highlighter. It looks so good together. Perfect for the season. And now it's time for us to try the Rouge Experience refill in Bohemian Cherry. Look at that. It's so beautiful. So, like, from the bullet here, we can see that there's, like, some warmth in it, which I'm actually so excited to try out. So let me dial this down. Then let me get a spatula. And let me just scrape a little bit of this. So now I'm going to be getting this Hakuhodo S. What's this? 129. Oh my god, my vision is changing. Okay, I can't see, like, you know, the label has, like, you know, faded. So if I find the correct name for this later, I'm just gonna flash it here on the screen. Okay, all right, so before I apply the lipstick, which I picked up in the brush head here, I'm just going to remove the lip balm that I used earlier. Okay, and let me just get the brush that I used with the foundation, and let me just tidy that up a bit. Okay, and let's try the lipstick now. So I'm just gonna shut up. Alright, what do you guys think? Look at that color. Isn't that so gorgeous? Hang on, let me just pop my finger into my lip so that we can get any excess color there, so we don't get it into my teeth. But I do love the shade of this. Look at that. It's really popping, like, you know, and my skin is also, like, you know, really showing itself. And they, you know, they're like, you know, contrasting very well to each other. Very beautiful color. Now, I know some of you guys are thinking, why did she release this color at this time of the year? So if you're not a fan of Lisa, let me just say that there was a delay in the release of this, like, you know, during the initial like, you know, launch. So that's why it took, like, you know, so long for this lip color to arrive. And if you're looking for a, like, you know, summer lipstick, her new release called Satiety is also available. I'm going to flash it here. Now, I also want to get that lip color, but I can't order anything off of the internet as of the moment because I am in between homes. So not until I transfer to my, like, you know, new condo unit, that's the only time I'm going to order, like, you know, some new makeup stuff, because it takes a while for some products to arrive here in my home. Okay, all right, but so far I love it. I'm sure you guys have seen on how well, like, you know, it applied the pigment on my lips, how well it, like, you know, just really you're going to deliver the pigment from the brush, and it's a very even, like, you know, kind of pigmentation, and there's a very nice, like, you know, sheen to this lipstick. Look at that. Very beautiful. Okay, what do you guys think? I absolutely love it. Now, even if it's, like, you know, the summer season now, why don't you just, you know, play up with your lip? Because that would be, like, you know, so gorgeous. It's such a powerful color, I do have to say. Okay, so now let's try her Sculpt and Shade lip pencil. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try 3C on this, like, you know, half of my lip, and I'm gonna keep quiet now. Okay, I love the shade that it imparted on my lips. The edges is not, like, you know, too dark. So if you like to have the, you know, a nice light edge, but you have the same color tone with this lipstick, 3C is a good color to use. And I think that, you know, the undertone of this Sculpt and Shade lip liner works very well, like, you know, with this Bohemian Cherry lip color. Look at that. Okay. So let's try 3N now. So I think 3N is going to be deeper. So I think this will impart a much more, you know, defined line on the lips. Yeah, so I think you guys can see, like, you know, the slight difference, wherein it's a little bit brighter here in the edges of my lips in comparison to this, because this one has a much more deeper shade, and of course because it's neutral, so it really adds more definition and depth into the lip. Now, I did not purchase the color 3W because I think that might be just too warm for this lip color, because after all, it's a very cool toned lipstick, but you can actually see there's a hint of warmth there. So depending on how the light hits it, it looks like it's a very nice cherry color, a very nice blue toned purple. But sometimes if you just angle it into the light, you can actually see the violet tones of it coming out. It's a very nice shade, very, very beautiful. Okay, so I'm finding that my cheeks is looking a little bit too pale for this lip color. So let me get a different brush here. So I'm just gonna pick up more of the Hourglass Vision color. I love this color, and let me just add more depth and color into my cheeks, just so that I don't look like I'm washed out and paled out. Beautiful. Very easy to layer. And with the brush that I use for the foundation, again, blending is always the key. Alright, so I'm gonna get the pencil in 3N again, and then I'm just gonna line the rest of my lips because I love the definition that I'm getting here. Love that. Love the lipstick color. Look at that. So beautiful. Okay, so since we're playing around with makeup here, now I'm finding that my eyelids are just a little bit too plain for this lipstick color. So let's play it up a little bit, okay? So I have here Lisa's Liquid Silk, and this is in the color Irene. I love this shade. It's a very nice, pinky tone to it. And I'm just gonna get a flat brush here. This is from Refer. This is number 28. And I'm going to apply a thin layer of this all over my eyelids. Now, by the way, if you're a fan of Refer, they are having a sale coming on, so do check that out, okay? All right, so the eye base is down, and I actually can envision using the Sorcery palette with this lip color, but I'm going to be concentrating using maybe the green tones here, just to play up with the contrast. So I'm not gonna overly do it, but I'm gonna keep it nice and light. But what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna pick up maybe the deep green shade here, and I'm gonna be using this pencil brush from Sonia G, and I'm just gonna lightly apply this as close to my lash line as possible, because I just want to add a hint of color there. I don't want to do an all over kind of an eyeshadow look. So I'm gonna add a thick layer of that here in my outer corners, and I'm gonna try to thin it out as I get close into the inner corner of my eye. All right, I love that. And now with a clean smaller brush head for a pencil brush, I'm just going to blend out the edges and try to create a very diffused flick in the outer corners of my eyes. Okay, I love that. And now I'm just going to add more intensity into my lash line. And I'm going to be using Lisa's Seamless Glide eye pencil. This is gorgeous. And I'm just going to apply this right in between my lashes. Just really smudging it in, just so that we have a very nice hint of definition and intensity there. I think you guys can see that the color of my eye is also popping out. So let me continue to add more of that as I get closer into the inner corner of my eyes. Now I really love applying eyeliner as close in the inner corner of my eyes, because it just has a way of elongating my eye. I think you guys can see that. It's absolutely gorgeous color. It's still quite intense, but it's not as intense as a black. And now what I want to do is I just want to add a hint of some of Lisa's Kitten Flick eyeliner, also as close to the base of my eyelashes as possible. And this will just really help in creating more longevity for this eye look. And with the brush that I used earlier for the matte green eyeshadow, I'm just going to lightly buff it and to blend everything and just to make the edges look softer. Okay, so now I'm gonna apply some mascara. I'm gonna be using the Kitten Lash mascara from Lisa, and I'm just gonna apply a thin layer, concentrating, applying it here in the outer corners of my lashes because I want to create a nice lift there, and I want to, like, you know, keep the volume of my lashes in that area. Look at that nice lift, and maybe let me just add a hint here, and let me get one more layer, and let me just apply that here in the outer, like, you know, third of my lashes, just, like, you know, really building up the length and the volume and intensity there. Look at that, beautiful, gorgeous, lovely. And I think I just want to add a hint of, like, you know, shimmer and glitter on, like, you know, my eye here. So I'm going to be using this very nice patina colored gold, and I'm going to be using this very nice pencil brush from Sonia G. It's going to pick up the color generously all over the brush head here. And I'm just going to apply this at the very edge of the dark shade of the eyeshadow that I applied earlier, because this will just apply, like, you know, some hint of drama there and also some brightness. I love that. Look at the very beautiful, nice blend as well. Super lovely, very pretty. I know you can't see it here, but, you know, it just adds a very nice hint of, like, you know, drama and light into that area. I love it. Okay, fantastic. All right, so I think that's my eyes done. So I'm gonna finish this other eye, and then I'm gonna come right back. All right, so that's the last layer of mascara down. I love it, and it kind of, like, completes the eye, and it also kind of, like, completes the look, because my eyes earlier, I think you guys have, like, you know, noticed that it was just a little bit too, like, you know, blank and stark. It wasn't lively at all, especially with this lip color. But, like, you know, adding a nice hint of, like, you know, eyeshadow, and, like, you know, I'm just using it in an eyeliner kind of an application. It just, like, you know, really does something, and it just, like, you know, balances everything out. Okay, all right, so at this point I just want to, like, you know, powder some portions of my face where I'm always oily, and it's always, like, you know, here in this portion, a little bit here in my T-zone area, here on my, like, you know, chin. And what else do I need? I think I need a hint of, like, you know, bronzer. So let me just get a little bit of, like, you know, these two, and I'm gonna use the TF3 here from Sonia G, and I'm just gonna get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and mix them together and just lightly dab it here, you know, just for additional warmth, but not too much, just a little, so that we have, like, a bronzer kind of a thing going on. And with the brush that I used for the powder earlier, I'm just gonna pick up a little bit of this and a little bit of that, blend, blend, blend. And maybe just add a hint of that here into my, like, you know, forehead area, and, like, you know, really buff that in, just so that we have, like, you know, a hint of dimension going on. Because after all, like, you know, all of the attention, like, you know, is concentrated in this part of my face. So everything is looking, like, you know, way too, like, you know, big in this area, and, like, you know, very, very bright. So adding a hint of, like, you know, bronzer or even contour in this portion will just really help bring everything, like, you know, closer together, like, you know, and just, you know, well balanced and put together. All right, so I believe we have come to the end of our vlog for today. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Oops, there's lipstick on my teeth. Let me just remove that. Okay, yeah, so I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I love the Bohemian Cherry lip color from Lisa. It's such a gorgeous, gorgeous lip color. And I do have to say that, like, you know, don't be scared of lip colors like this, because it's actually so gorgeous and it's actually very wearable, especially if you just learn how to balance it. And of course, if you are someone who has lighter, like, skin tones than I do, and you find that this kind of, like, you know, lip color application is, you know, just too strong for you, you can always apply this as a stain. You can just, like, you know, use your finger, dab it on the bullet, and then you dab that onto your lips. And you can also use this for your cheeks as well, by the way. Okay, and the lipstick here is actually very, very comfortable. I said this in, like, you know, my first impressions video for her Rouge Experience refill lipsticks, and they're actually so gorgeous. Like, you know, they don't fill in into the cracks of your lips. Very even pigmentation, well balanced, and very, very comfortable, not drying at all, which I absolutely love. Okay, yes, so that's it. I hope that you guys enjoyed me showing you how I got to know the Bohemian Cherry lip color of Lisa Eldridge, and also her foundation in number 17. So I hope that you guys, like, you know, especially if you are someone who has olive undertones, and if you've been, like, you know, searching for a foundation that would be a match for you, I hope that you found this video insightful as well. And do check out her website. I'm gonna put a link down in the description box, so you can also check out if there are, like, you know, other, like, you know, olive undertones in her range that will suit your skin tone. Okay, all right, so that's it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you have any more questions, please let me know down in the comments box, and let's have a conversation about it. All right, okay, so that's it for me today. I'm gonna let you guys go now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you're having a good day wherever you are. Bye.